His cause of death was damage to his brain caused by insulin.
No one should ever have a blood sugar of 21.
What's going to happen to you?
They're in a coma, probably near death.
She said if you could help me hold a pillow over his face, because I don't like seeing him this way.
You don't know if any fluid was taken out of this vial or not.
The Ponzi scheme murder trial resumes this morning. The state is expected to rest soon. So have they proven that Natalie Cochran poisoned her husband, Michael? And TikTok may have won a legal battle, but can it win the war? The app now has the ultimate influencer on its side, President Trump. We're talking about the legal ramifications with our power panel. Also this hour, we're spotlighting a newly released prison phone call from Susan Smith. We'll tell you what the child killer is saying about the media frenzy surrounding her case. And Bryan Kohberger due back in court for a couple of hearings this week. We'll talk about how his defense team's motion to suppress evidence could be tipping the scales of justice. It's all coming up next for you, plus much more right here on Opening Statements. Good Tuesday morning to you and welcome to Opening Statements. I'm your host, Julie Grant. I hope you had a wonderful weekend. We've got a wonderful show planned for you, so let's get it going. The coffee and the court, as we like to say around here. Go ahead and grab that cup of coffee right now because it's time for my opening statement. Not so fast. Lyle and Eric Menendez aren't going to be back in court just yet. Because of the devastating wildfires in California, the hearing that was supposed to be happening at the end of this month is now going to happen on March 20th and 21st. Now, this is a great move, if you ask me, because those victims of the wildfires need to come first. Assessing the situation, any potential prosecutions that will stem therefrom need to be prioritized. The Menendez brothers, they can wait. And they should wait in prison for the rest of their lives, as the court already ordered. These murderers are looking for special treatment. They could be on death row right now. Let's remember that. They could be. The state sought it, but they got mercy from their jury. So now it seems to me they want more mercy. And the question is it deserved? You know, my friends, in the hype of all the Menendez mania everywhere, what's really gotten lost is that their sex abuse claims have never proven to be true. They're just their claims. They have not been proven as fact. So here's a question. What kind of legal precedent would be set if these killers are shown mercy? I mean, think about it. If they are resentenced, if they are released, are all cold-blooded killers who claim they experienced child abuse going to start petitioning courts for their release? That would set a pretty bad precedent if you ask me. You do the crime, you do the time. You know, everyone has experienced some form of trauma during their lifetime. Everybody's got problems. But not everybody decides to murder their parents with shotguns at close range, lie to police about it, and then spend their parents' fortune. That's my opening statement on this Tuesday. Let me know if you like it. Right now, it's time for your daily docket.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Jason Chen, guilty of first-degree premeditated murder.
This is an emotional verdict. Everyone needs to maintain the calm, please. All right, the jurors, this is your individual verdict. Please so indicate by raising your right hand. Record should reflect that everyone's right hand is raised. All right, sir, read count two.
With respect to count 2 of Presumption 315228, we, the jury, find the defendant, Jason Chen, guilty.
In Tennessee, defendant Jason Chen found guilty of murdering 22-year-old Jasmine Pace. The jury came back with a verdict on Monday. That's right, the court worked through the weekend and on the Dr. King holiday. And so his sentencing is happening this morning. It's set for 9 a.m. Eastern. We're going to go in there live when it begins. And in Florida, we've got OnlyFans model Courtney Clenny back in court for a motions hearing. That one starts up at 9:30 a.m. Eastern. And the state's going to continue its case this morning in the Ponzi scheme murder trial in West Virginia. Virginia for defendant Natalie Cochran. Court in that case will begin at 9 a.m. Eastern. And that is our top story for you this morning, as the state is expected to call even more witnesses to testify regarding Natalie Cochran, they say, poisoning her husband with insulin. Friday, an FBI chemist testified about 3 vials found in their home, one with insulin, another one containing steroids, and a third had some unknown contents. Now, on cross, Cochran's defense team suggested that the bottles could not be linked to Michael's death and that the insulin bottle appeared to be full. Cochran is already serving time in federal prison after pleading guilty to running a Ponzi scheme. Now, the state is trying to prove that she murdered her husband, Michael, to stop him from blowing it all up. Court TV legal correspondent Kelly Craft is in West Virginia with what we can expect today.
Good morning, Julie. Court will resume shortly here in Beckley, West Virginia. This is the case for Natalie Cochran. She is accused of murdering her husband by injecting him with a lethal dose of insulin. The state so far has called 10 witnesses. They have a few more to go. Defense counsel has subpoenaed more than 12 people. Last week, defendant Natalie Cochran actively participating in her case. She listened as an FBI chemist testified about the contents of vials found inside Natalie and Michael Cochran's home. One vial contained insulin. The liquid contained in another vial was not consistent with what the label stated. Jason Bowen, a contractor who was friends with Michael, said Michael told him he thought at one time he was being poisoned. On cross-examination, he was asked about the supplements Michael was taking.
I know he took supplements. There's many kinds of supplements.
All kinds of supplements, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
To increase his vitality, to increase his physicality.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yes.
Well, how many of the, well, do you know what those supplements were?
I do not.
Well, how many of them did he take?
I don't know.
Well, you were in their home frequently. Did you witness Mr. Cochran taking as many as 30 and 35 pills at a time?
I did not.
You did not? What did you witness?
I never witnessed him taking any supplements.
Bowen also testified that he continued to ask Natalie to take Michael to the hospital on the day that he fell unconscious, but she refused. That's the latest from here in Beckley, West Virginia. Julie, we'll send it back to you.
All right, our thanks to Kelly Craft for that early update. We'll see more of her later when we go into this trial live. All right, now let's talk about it because we know the state is nearing the end of this case. They're not done yet. They're still going to be calling the medical examiner, we understand it, perhaps another chemist. So have they proven, or are they on the way to proving this poisoning? That's the allegation, right? They've got the burden. Natalie Cochran's cloaked in the presumption of innocence. Let's bring in our legal eagles now, attorneys Melba Pearson and Randolph Rice on the show to help us dig through this. Good morning to you both. Melba, I want to go to you first, please. Do you think the state is on track here, or have they gotten there already in terms of proving the case that they've brought against this woman?
Well, good morning to you both. And I do believe that the prosecution is definitely on the pathway if they're not there as of yet. You know, first of all, they establish what the motive would be, even though legally a motive does not need to be established. Clearly, she had this Ponzi scheme going. She didn't want her husband to realize that it was even worse than he had initially thought. And so there's a motive. Again, doesn't need to be proven legally, but juries always want to know why, right? Then on top of that, we just saw the clip from the witness who was talking about, yeah, he took supplements, but I never saw him take handfuls at a time. So again, that goes ahead and refutes the defense claim that he was just willy-nilly taking all these pills and anything could have killed him. And then lastly, you had the issue of the fact that, you know, multiple people had offered help in terms of, well, can get him to the hospital, let's give him, you know, CPR, or something along those lines, and she kept refusing all of that. If you love your husband, if you love your partner or spouse, you don't want to see them on the floor potentially dying and say, oh yeah, they'll just sleep it off. And so that lack of concern also kind of plays into her state of mind, which can lead to a jury coming to the conclusion that she is in fact guilty of the murder of her husband.
Sharp analysis, Melba. You said something, I've seen many viewers saying, you know, the lack of concern, you really hit on it. That I think is very telling, and many of our courties have picked up on that and said, this doesn't pass the smell test. Thank you for that. Randolph, I want to go to you next, please, and look at the defense story here, because they're saying that this A young man who was otherwise healthy, and into bodybuilding, killed himself, albeit accidentally, through all of the different steroids and supplements and things that he was ingesting. How convinced are you at the defense theory that they floated out there for this jury's consideration?
Well, I think Melba makes some really great points. I don't think they've put a bow on this yet in terms of the state's argument or their evidence, because the defense is going to make that argument that he was taking those 30 or 35 supplements that were from Mexico. So are they valid? Are they FDA approved? That puts a thought in the mind of the jury of that this is some sort of crazy supplement or drug that he's taking. So that is certainly a strong argument, but I think it's going to come down to the experts. Certainly, as you mentioned in your opening there, the defense has 10 to 12 different witnesses they've subpoenaed. How important are those witnesses for the defense? Do they sway that jury back? Do those experts sway that jury back to say, yes, there was something else in his system that killed him? It wasn't the insulin that ultimately killed him that day.
I appreciate it, Randolph. Right, great points. I have a clip from the cross-examination of that contractor friend of Michael's, who definitely gave really good, helpful testimony for the state. We know there's no doubt about that. But on cross, the defense might have scored a couple of points here. Let's take a look.
What did he complain of, sir, when he was telling you that he didn't feel good?
He would complain about just not feeling right, just feeling dizzy.
Not feeling right, how?
Felt like he said he felt like he'd been poisoned.
He felt like he was poisoned. All right.
Okay, so apparently he would say he felt like he was poisoned when he would have these seizures and experience them. Melba, do you think that the state needs to do any more to button up their theory that this was a homicide by poisoning and not something that occurred accidentally or because of drug interference going on with everything Michael was taking?
Well, I think the key here, Julie, is going to be the basically rebuttal case of the state, right? Because you don't know 110% what the defense is going to come up with. Depending on the jurisdiction, you may have had the opportunity to do depositions of the defense witnesses or at least get some kind of proffer of what they're going to say, but you don't really know until they actually get on the stand. So they may not bring forward anything else that the prosecution may feel that they need to clean up. But if they do bring on experts or witnesses that say that, his symptoms and him being the victim, his symptoms were consistent with an overdose of steroids, or especially the symptoms he was speaking of when he said he felt like he was being poisoned, that could be consistent with illicit, steroids or something along those lines, then the prosecution will definitely have to come back with some sort of rebuttal expert to kind of refocus the jury on the true cause of death.
Right. You gave us something to watch for, Mel, but the rebuttal, this case is far from over. You're right. There could be a big rebuttal coming the defense's way. I've got another clip. This is again a cross-examination clip, but this is the FBI's chemist, Joseph Stevens, who's on the stand. And we know we've got the insulin, right? But whether or not the bottle was used is being debated right now between the sides. Let's watch.
There is no possible way to say that particular vial is the particular vial that was analyzed by you. Isn't that correct? You don't know if any fluid was taken out of this vial or not.
That is correct.
Now it's been set forth that there was a puncture in the top of this vial. Is that correct?
That's outside my scope of expertise. There's a different examiner that examined that.
Okay. Randolph, tell us what you think of this. The defense trying to show that the bottle might have been there, but nobody used it.
Yeah, I'm not sure this witness really helped the state that much. In fact, I think it might have hurt him a little bit in the fact that he was sort of unsure as to whether this bottle was the one used, whether this bottle was punctured, whether this was the bottle that was the insulin that was placed in Mr. Mullen's body. So I'm not really sure that this helped the state that much. It might have given the defense somewhat of a little bit of another argument, possibly, to go down in addition to the 30 other supplements and steroids that he was getting from Mexico and taking prior to his death.
Great points, Randolph. We'll leave it here for now, but a big day today as the final witnesses for the state are going to be called, and we'll see what the ME has to say about what was found in Michael's body. Randolph Rice, Melba Pearson, I'm so glad you both are on the show today. Stand by for more cues, please. We're going to hit a break. When we come back here on Opening Statements, here's what we've got.
I know that what I did was horrible. And I would give anything if I could go back and change it.
We're spotlighting killer mom Susan Smith's newly released prison call. But first, TikTok returning after going dark for less than 24 hours. However, the legal battle is still heating up. A Ponzi scheme and a deadly poisoning.
A former pharmacist already convicted in a federal fraud case.
Now stands trial for the murder of her husband.
The financial crime gives rise to motive.
Did Natalie Cochran kill to cover up other crimes?
We're not here to obtain convictions. We're here to obtain the truth.
Now a jury will decide her fate.
And Court TV will bring you every minute.
The Ponzi scheme murder trial. Live coverage today, only on Court TV.
Step outside and talk to me? No. Don't step in. Oh, you want to talk to my
Brady material is evidence that either is inculpatory or exculpatory, either can help convict or help exonerate.
FBI raid Providence. They just took him out.
Hey, man. Are you John?
Yep.
Yo, what's up? You live?
Yes.
There we go.
What do you want to tell us?
Real quick.
What's that?
Make me famous. Why not?
TikTok is back online, and that is what's trending in true crime this morning. TikTok welcoming back American users on Sunday after going dark for less than 24 hours. Users first saw this message when they opened up the app on Saturday night. Look at this. It said, sorry, TikTok isn't available right now. A law banning TikTok has been enacted in the U.S. Unfortunately, that means you can't use TikTok for now. We are fortunate that President Trump has indicated that he will work with us on a solution to reinstate TikTok once he takes office. Well, then, a little more than 12 hours later, users saw a different message. This one, it said, thanks for patience and support. As a result of President Trump's efforts, TikTok is back in the U.S. President Donald Trump signing on Monday an executive action that delays enforcement of the law for 75 days. The CEO of TikTok, by the way, was at the president's inauguration on Monday. And so this morning we're asking, is TikTok's legal battle all but won? Let me bring in our guests now. Still with me, attorneys Melba Pearson and Randolph Rice, and want to welcome in entertainment journalist Shishi Yang. Shishi, good morning. I want to start with you, please. What do you think about this battle? Is it almost over for TikTok?
Good morning, Julie. What a PR stunt we saw over the weekend. Let's just call it for what it is. This is a political battle masked as a tech battle between China and the U.S. And you and I, along with 170 million Americans, we're just caught in the middle. I'm talking people who have spent the last 5 years building communities, building small business, making a living off of TikTok, and now it's all being taken away. So to me, I really do think that President Trump's delay by 75 days, that reflects a much bigger conversation about how much the government can dictate what we can and can't use on the internet, and whether the government can really force the sale of a private company under the guise of national security. Now, as a content creator myself, I really don't think that by banning one app or forcing joint venture of ownership of the app is going to protect our private data, because let's face it, millions of Americans are already flocking to another Chinese app called Rednote, which poses all the same risks. And in the likelihood that TikTok actually does get banned, that also increases the likelihood of all of our data being moved from the server in Culver City to China. So in my opinion, the core issue here is really about establishing more global privacy laws. Any talk about banning the app, forcing a sale is really just political theater for power and profit in this tech war.
Shishi, love your take. Randolph Rice, let me go to you, please. What do you think about this legal battle? Is it looking good for TikTok?
Well, at the end of the day, TikTok has to make a decision because originally China said that we're not going to sell it. We're not going to give any partial ownership. And what President Trump has done is said to the Attorney General, 75 days, you do not enforce the law. Now, remember, the law is still in place. In 75 days, the law will go back into effect, and all the internet providers will start having to essentially be under the law and have penalties if they're allowed to download this app. So it's giving them more time to negotiate this 50-50 split or whatever the ownership may be. But at the end of the day, China has always said, we're not going to sell this. We're not going to have co-ownership. So I'm not sure President Trump is going to be able to convince them to make that sale. And if they can't, ultimately, it'll go away in 75 days.
Randolph, appreciate it. Yeah. So the concern our lawmakers have is they want TikTok to divest from ByteDance, the parent company, because they're saying, look, they're going to be sending information and harvesting information about American users and giving it to the Chinese government, and everybody's going to be in danger. But as Shishi touched on, if there's another buyer, somebody that America trusts, you know, I don't know, maybe Elon Musk or somebody, who knows, then all is well in the world. But Shishi hit on it. Can the government, the lawmakers in America say, this is what you need to do with your business, TikTok? Melba, I want you to weigh in legally. Do you think this is a fair legal ask?
Yeah, this is a tough one because, first of all, when you actually look at the law that was passed by Congress, it was a bipartisan law, right? So we had Republican and Democratic Congress people that were both like, listen, this is a national security risk, and so we're going to pass this piece of legislation to force ByteDance to divest from TikTok. But then it does speak to a bigger issue as to government control of enterprise. And can the government consistently force people and say, I don't like who you're tied to, I don't like who your partner is, you now have to divest or face other sanctions? So there's a broader commercial aspect here. And then, of course, you know, you look at the effect that it would have on the content creators. There are many content creators, as my colleague very rightly stated, who literally their entire living is made on doing TikTok videos and all of that. And I don't mean like funky influencers. I mean literally people with, you know, they're doing cooking shows, they're doing different types of things to earn a legitimate income. What happens to them? And of course, our privacy as American citizens and our right to be able to choose who gets our information, what apps we want to use, etc. So, you know, again, 75 days, I don't see any major change happening unless the incoming administration is able to get someone else to make an offer that ByteDance can't refuse, possibly from Elon Musk. We don't know. We will see.
Maybe. I know, right, Melba? Like a little Godfather reference, an offer you can't refuse. So thank you for all of that. And you touched on something really key, right? All of the influencers and TikTokers and content creators who were going, my life and my livelihood is over. Shishi, would you speak to that, please? There was true panic, wasn't there, for that small period of time?
There was absolutely true panic. Even opening some of the other social media apps, all people could talk about was how to potentially get on a VPN to mask their IP address to hopefully still get on TikTok. So the magnitude of TikTok being banned is going to impact not just the content creator economy, but so many different industries as well. And 170 million Americans, we're talking about half of the country here. So this is something that for the past 5 years, people have gone on religiously, and to think that it's all going to be taken away is devastating.
It really is, Shishi. You're right. Randolph Rice, let me go to you, please, with a legal question in all this. I know the window of time was short, but we know people have monetized TikTok. I mean, it's astounding how much money can be made by some of these influencers. Do you think anybody might be able to sue for any loss of income?
Julie, that is an amazing question. And ultimately, I'm not sure who they would sue, because there's probably sovereignty for the U.S. government in taking this action. So I don't think they have any claim against them. At the end of the day, you know, they might be just sort of left out in the cold with not having any type of content that may get lost in 75 days. So while I think it's a great idea and a great question, I don't necessarily know that there's some sort of value that they can get back from it. And ultimately, you also think about the damages matter here. You know, the damages oftentimes in any type of civil suit is, what would your damages be? Well, the shift is going to say that the shift for that damage would be go to another platform, go to YouTube, go to Instagram, go to Facebook, and therefore you're mitigating your damages, and therefore there wouldn't be any civil suit without damages.
Oh, such good analysis. Randolph, thank you for that. We've got to leave it there for now, but we'll continue TikToking and talking about the TikTok legal battle here. Shishi Yang, we got to say goodbye to you. My friends at home, be sure to follow Shishi on social media, and you'll see her back here again very soon. Randolph and Melba are sticking around. Please do the same at home. Go refill your coffee. When we return, we're going to hear from killer mom Susan Smith. That's right, there's some newly released prison phone calls. Calls made just weeks before she was denied parole. You're going to hear it next. And Bryan Kohberger back in court this week. His defense team pushing to get some evidence unsealed. We'll talk about whether it could tip the scales in his case.
I want to say to my babies that your mama loves you so much.
Welcome back to Opening Statements. I'm Julie Grant. This morning, we're shining the spotlight on killer mom Susan Smith and prison phone calls that she made before she was denied parole. Smith drowned her two young sons, Michael and Alex, back in 1994. And she came up for parole review this past November after serving 30 years of her life sentence. Now, one of the reasons she was denied parole was because she spoke to a documentary filmmaker, which is against prison rules. She was looking to make some money, apparently, through her story. Now, just a couple of weeks before that happened, she was heard on jail phone calls saying that she would not talk to the media. Fox News Digital obtained those recordings. Take a listen.
I got a letter from a woman, works with Dr. Phil. Dr. Phil Primetime or something. Well, I've already gone it away, so I can't even read it to you.
Okay, so why the change of heart? We have two very special guests I want to bring in now. Two people who prosecuted Susan Smith, attorney Tommy Pope and attorney Kevin Brackett. You both are friends and colleagues for many years. And Tommy, at the time, you were the solicitor in the 16th Judicial Circuit of South Carolina. And Kevin, now you are the solicitor in the 16th Circuit. And you two have worked together to do such tremendous work on this case. You both were together recently at that parole review hearing and advocating so strongly against her release and advocating for Michael and Alex. So let's talk about what you make of this call. What a contradiction that, you know, first she's saying, oh no, she's not going to talk, and then she's interested in talking and is talking to the filmmaker and wanting to make money on it. Tommy Pope, to you first, please.
Julie, I think on the conversation, the phone conversation, I think she's kind of just bragging. You know, people are wanting to talk to me. I didn't even read it. You know, I didn't pay any attention to it. I think she's chatting for that purpose because, you know, we talked recently when you and I talked about the parole hearing. The worst thing is David and his family are going to have to go through it every 2 years. And I said if Susan would get out, move to Montana, never be seen or heard from again, then actually that might be better for David and his family. But as you see, that's not what's going to happen. If Susan was out, she'd be on a reality show or something like that within a month. And so that's the concern. I don't believe her saying I threw it away is a change of heart. I think that would just kind of bragging to say she's being contacted by all these important people.
Right, Tommy. It seems that Susan has always loved the spotlight on Susan. Seems like not much has changed, has it? Kevin Brackett, to you next, please. Your thoughts on her.
Well, I agree with Tommy. The hardest thing with trying to decipher what Susan is up to is you just can't believe anything she says. On these jail phone calls, she knows she's being recorded. So it's also possible that she was just saying that because she didn't want them to know that she was going to speak with a documentarian or a TV person, because she knows that's not really it's going to be against the rules. So it's possible that she was saying it for that. But, like I said, Susan, she's just, I think, a pathological liar. I don't think she knows how to tell the truth. So it's really, really challenging to figure out what she's up to at any given time.
Yeah, it sure is. Kevin, thank you for that. I want to play, we have 2 more clips, again, obtained by Fox News Digital. We're going to roll them both. And the first one, she's talking about another letter that she received while behind bars. And she talks about another letter from someone in California, a man who wrote to her, apparently. Let's take a listen to what she says on these calls.
What was it about? Huh? Just wanted to talk with me. Same thing like most of them. Wanted to give me a platform to tell my story. But I wouldn't talk to him, even if I could. I did get a letter from some guy in California, but all he said was, "Hi, you don't know me, and I've never done this before. Care to talk?" And that was it. Just one line. It was handwritten. Or are you open to talk or something like that? I don't know. It's kind of odd. It's already gone in the trash too.
Okay. Tommy Pope, back to you, please. What are you thinking as you listen to her voice and her responses here?
Well, I think she's just got men that want to chat with her, and she's enjoying that. But I think Kevin was probably spot on after listening to that. She knows she has an audience of correctional officials, and so I think she's telling them exactly what they want to hear. I had heard, I got called by another agency right after the parole hearing that she got back and pitched a fit that she really thought she was going to get out. So I think much like she thought she was going to get Tom Finley if she didn't have kids, I think she's delusional. I mean, not mentally ill delusional, but I think she deludes herself into believing that she can fool everybody. And fortunately for us, we got people like Kevin Brackett that see right through her.
That's right. That's right. Tommy, thank you. And this is really something. It certainly doesn't surprise those of us who followed her case and know how manipulative she is. But she actually thought that everyone was going to believe her tears and her sob story and all of that. I'm curious, Kevin, when you were there, you and Tommy were, you were there in the room together, with David Smith and other family members and loved ones, advocating and standing up for Michael and Alex here and listening to her go on and on about herself and why she should be let out. Did you think in your mind, I'm curious, Kevin, did you think that, oh, she really believes this? She really believes that she's going to start walking free here soon?
The problem with somebody who's pathological is you really don't know. I think she can convince herself that she sounds plausible. And I think she probably really did believe what she was saying, while everyone around her is just hearing a 30-year-old echo from the Susan Smith who stood out there pleading for the return of her children. It's the same voice. It's the same strategy. She thinks she has this power over people. Now, I will say about the people that call her and the people that reach out to her, she does dupe a lot of people, or a lot of people want to be duped, because it's stunning how many people in the U.S., men particularly, reach out to her, send her money, want to communicate with her because they want to be, they think maybe they can be the one who leads her to the right path. I don't know what they think, but those people are really the fools. I mean, she's playing them and pads her canteen account with their money. So that's probably one of those guys from California that was sending a letter to her.
Yes, Kevin, you're so right. You're so right. Great analysis. It's almost like, Alec Murdaugh and Susan Smith should find each other behind bars in South Carolina, because all these people from the outside reaching out. It's stunning to me when these people reach out to killers and want to date them and have a fan club for them. Tommy Pope, I want to talk to you about something you had shared with me when we were in South Carolina doing the coverage, and we were going back to the trial, and you were saying, you could remember like it was yesterday, Susan Smith, pulling things during the trial. Like, for instance, when the jury was out of the room, she wouldn't have much of a reaction to what happened with her kids or some piece of evidence that was really, really heart-wrenching. But then when the jury was in, she had the audience. Oh, was she an actress, huh? Would you kind of take us back and share with us a little bit of what you observed from her?
Sure. The one you and I talked about specifically meshes exactly with what we saw at the parole hearing. And we had the video. And as I shared with you, it's about 6 minutes. It was the video of the car testing we did. And it would literally, there was a camera mounted in the back, so you saw what the boys would have experienced. And it would literally take your breath away watching it. When she's watching it, she's giggling and playing tic-tac-toe or writing notes with the paralegal at the other table. When we turn the TV around, she can't even see it, and she's crying when the jury's in. There was a lot of little setup things like that. I remember a brother yelling how many volts would be in the electric chair. There were her apologizing to David in the courtroom. David said she hadn't really ever apologized, but she did dramatically as they walk her past the jury. And so it was a lot of theater. Fortunately, the jurors saw through that.
Yes. Smart jurors that didn't buy it, and a smart parole board who didn't buy it. And we know we'll go through this, as you both noted, in just a couple of years. But again, outstanding advocacy from you both. Tommy Pope, Kevin Brackett, thank you both for your time this morning and your insight. And I know we'll be talking a lot more about this case and many others very soon. We'll let you get going. Thanks again. And here on Opening Statements, when we return, we're going to go to Idaho. We're talking about Bryan Kohberger's case and the latest moves by his defense team to tip the scales of justice. We'll be right back.
Did you know Scripps News is streaming for free on all your favorite streaming services?
That is something that is very important.
Search for Scripps News on your smart TV to find our channel.
This is amazing stuff here.
Once you get the app, get full free access to breaking news.
All that excitement culminates today.
Live events.
And you can really kind of feel the energy.
And the award-winning journalism you expect from Scripps News.
Oh yeah, there it is.
Start streaming Scripps News today.
You was right up on the back end of that van, pulled you over for tailgating. Is this your car? Okay, cool. Where are you headed?
Well, we're coming from WSU.
So you're coming from Washington State University?
Yeah.
And you're going where?
Oh. We're going to be going to Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay.
We're heading to Boise, Idaho, in the case against Bryan Kohberger. What you just saw there was Kohberger and his dad being pulled over by an Indiana sheriff's deputy while they were on their way to their family home back in Pennsylvania. Now, this was just weeks after the murders of 4 University of Idaho students in November of 2022. And there are 2 hearings coming up in Kohberger's case this week. There's one today, and there's one coming up on Thursday. And depending on how those hearings go, we could see the scales of justice being tipped. Now, the hearings are dealing with evidence stemming from investigators' use of DNA, specifically investigative genetic genealogy, or IgG. Kohberger's defense team has repeatedly challenged the DNA data that was collected and the prosecution's lack of discovery relating to its use.
This original scientific sample from the surface trace DNA has been the product of multiple scientific experiments that we are entitled to have the underlying data on. And if we don't have that information, we are not going to be able to be effective attorneys for Mr. Kohberger. We then were educated by Dr. Larkin, and it was helpful to really understand what is this genetic genealogy and what's going on? And one of the first questions that the court asked as we began today was, if we have a sample and we have a buccal swab, why is all of this other material that you're asking for related to the genetic genealogy so important?
Now, Thursday's hearing has Kohberger's defense team fighting the use of IgG in his case entirely. But in an unusual move, this morning's 10 a.m. hearing, the Kohberger attorneys are requesting that Thursdays be open to the public. They want all relevant documents unsealed. And normally, as you know, my friends, they've tried to keep the media out of the courtroom. So there's something they obviously want the media to see come Thursday. Let's talk about these strategies. Let me bring back in our legal analyst guests, Melba Pearson and Randolph Rice. Melba, to you first, please. Your thoughts on the Kohberger defense team, what they may be angling to do here?
So I think this is basically an effort to kind of try the case in advance in the court of public opinion and being like, listen, this, genetic genealogy is so unreliable. It's this, crackpot science. But what they're kind of neglecting to mention is that this form of genetic genealogy has solved 600 cases in recent history, including the Golden State Killer. So it's, it is something that has been used in the legal realm for some time. Now, the question of whether or not it's, junk science or not, clearly they would have to have some hearings in terms of that. But I think the goal here is to basically low-key taint the jury and kind of sort of turn the people that could be the potential jurors against this type of genealogy to say, hey, this isn't reliable. This guy may actually be innocent of what he's charged of.
Melba, I like where you're going with that. Thank you. Randolph, to you next, please. What do you think the defense team's strategy is here this week?
Well, this is a strange one because, to address first the reason why they want to have it public, is it because they want the public perception, as Melba indicated, the public court to sort of weigh in on this or be able to judge what's going on here? Or is there some other motivation behind why they're doing this? I'm not really sure why they're now making this 180 and asking for all this information to be coming out in the public. I'm certainly familiar with this IgG. This is something that was used in the Rachel Morin case that ultimately tracked down the suspect who's charged in that case. It is very useful technology. It's very helpful nowadays. It's something that law enforcement is using more and more often, and I think it's something that obviously the state in this case can use. It's not really something I think that the judge is going to prohibit them, but I think they're going to try, the defense is going to try to say, hey, look, you have to exclude that, and then that ultimately is the fruit of the poisonous tree as to what they found, which was Mr. Kohberger.
Right, Randolph, right. On that knife sheath left behind at that gruesome murder scene, on the sheath, on the snap of it, investigators were able to get some DNA evidence to test, and it came back as the spawn of Papa Kohberger. And so then through the good old-fashioned police work, the dumpster diving at the Kohberger home, they were able to test something, and that's how they figured out it was spawn of Papa Kohberger. And so this is so incriminating. Melba, what happens? Let's just say, what if this piece of evidence were to be excluded ultimately by the court? Does the case collapse?
Yeah, I'm thinking it's a wrap if that does in fact get excluded, because that is basically the smoking gun tying Bryan Kohberger to the scene. There's just, to the best of my knowledge of what's been publicly made publicly available, there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of eyewitnesses. There doesn't seem to be any surveillance or any kind of video evidence. So basically, it seems the prosecution is hanging their hat on the fact that his DNA was found on the knife that was used on the murder weapon that was used to kill these 4 young people. Without that, I'm not quite sure where they can go with this. It may be a wrap.
Great points. We'll leave it here for now. But again, Kohberger in court today and Thursday. We're going to have much more coverage on his hearings this week later on Court TV Live. I have to say goodbye and a big thank you to our brilliant legal analysts, Melba Pearson, Randolph Rice. Thank you both for everything today. We'll see you soon. And my friends, that's all for this episode of Opening Statements. But watch it again, please. We put all the episodes up on our website for you. Just click on the shows tab right there. It's circled in red for you. You can watch them, share them, do whatever you want.